Hey all, welcome back to the channel, and let's do something kind of marvelous today and talk a little bit about Captain Marvel and the latest GotBot Goes to the Movies. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, share, and of course subscribe, man. Stick around the channel, have some fun with us here. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, Transformers Collectors, NL, and me everywhere. And I said a little while ago that I wanted to do a little bit more of the kind of go to the movie series, just because I enjoy doing it. Not necessarily because I'm, you know, a huge film critic or know a whole lot about cinematography. I don't. I'm just a fan. Simple as that. So I'm going to try and I guess present this in such a way that I'm going to do non-spoiler first, and I'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilerish stuff. Not that there's a whole lot to say non-spoiler-wise or spoiler-wise. This is a bit of a weird one for me, because I feel like Captain Marvel is very much like akin to Ant-Man or Black Panther, where these are kind of fringe characters traditionally. Like they're sort of the B-level characters in the kind of pantheon of the Marvel Universe, that because now they have gotten films, have become popular and given a new life. I think it's fantastic that they have, and a lot of them deserve to be A-list anyway, but it means that you have to have a bit of an origin story that ties in with everything that's going on. It's really sort of an interesting way of doing it, and this film is no exception. It's an interesting way of doing it. So we'll try and deal with this kind of topic at a time. First topic is music. The soundtrack here is absolutely fantastic if you're a fan of the 90s, especially 90s grunge. Like, there was some music in there from Nirvana, some music in there by No Doubt. I thought that it was like overall a fantastic soundtrack. But you know, I'm a kid of the 80s. I'm a teen of the 90s. You know, so it was right in my wheelhouse, right in my era. The movie takes place in 1995. Timeline-wise, for the MCU, it really kind of follows, I guess, Captain America. Like, it follows the I guess World War II era storytelling of Captain America. It's the next one in line, and then from there we would jump to more of the modern day stuff that we know now. And I found that very interesting to see, well, how exactly are they going to be able to fit Captain Marvel into it, since you're going kind of so far back in time, but they've done it really well. But that's kind of getting ahead of ourselves right now, because, like I said, the music, it is fantastic if you're a teen of the 90s, especially if you like grunge. There's more in there than that, but that's what I was sort of into at the time, so I was a fan of it. Special effects. The special effects were kind of your typical special effects for a Marvel movie. They were great, they were good, especially the kind of way that the energy moved around the hands of Carol Danvers. I liked that. Now, the climax of the film, we'll say, when she's in full-on Captain Marvel mode, I don't know if I felt like that was as up to snuff for me. It felt like it was good, it was really good, but it felt like when she had her mask on and, you know, full-on Captain Marvel, I'll save more discussing that for the spoiler part, but I felt like there was a little bit of a disconnect where you could tell pretty easily, like, yeah, this is done obviously with CG, and it looked good, and I understand why they did it that way, but I felt like I could tell. And while I'm a fan of the comics and whatnot, and I'm okay with it, I could understand why some people would have issue with it. The characters. The characters were great. We had some humor. We had some twists in characterization. We had some development and interpersonal bonds with characters that I didn't expect were going to get developed throughout the story. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the spoiler section. I think a lot of it ties into the fact that the story is done like a mystery. And because the story is done like a mystery, it allows for us to look at different dimensions of characters, because we look at them through a different lens and a different eye at different junctures and times in the movie, if that makes any sense. Speaking of the story, that's going to be next. So the story. The story was definitely interesting. It presented like a mystery with, a lot of action, of course. And there were certain parts of the explanation that I felt like I maybe could have been written a little more clearly, but as it all kind of pieced together, it eventually made sense, and you kind of had the realization of exactly what was going on and how it was transpiring. I liked the way it was done. Maybe a couple of little issues here and there, but overall, it kept me intrigued because you knew enough bits to know that there's more to this story than what's being presented to us at this time. I can't wait to see what they give us next, what nugget they give us next, and what nugget after that they give us next. And that's what they did. They would give us a nugget and then some action, a nugget and then some action. And you even saw the changing motives of characters throughout the film, and I thought that that was done really, really well. Overall, from music to kind of storytelling to characterization to action, really to most of the CG, it was a fun ride. Was it a perfect film? No. Was it a landmark film for Marvel? I don't think so. But it's nice to have this character fit into the Marvel Universe with the powers that she has. And I'll be interested to see sort of how she fits in, because if they'd done this, it wasn't by an accident. Let's be honest. Everything that's being done now is building toward Endgame. And it'll be interesting to see how she sort of fits in there. But that kind of, is where we'll leave it for the non-spoiler stuff. And overall, if you haven't seen the film yet, I'd say it's a solid 9. It's a fun time at the movies with a well-done story. Okay, spoiler time. So this is a nice story. It's a nice movie for Captain Marvel. It's borrowing from the Kree-Skrull War storyline from way back in 1971. The movie's been in development, my understanding, since about 2013, 2014, around there. Brie Larson, I thought was excellent casting for Captain Marvel, and I think that she was announced in 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. So like the film has been in kind of development for a long time, and it shows because there's a lot here that's polished. In fact, there's only one thing that I can kind of pick out that's not polished. We'll get to that in a little bit. Well, maybe two things. But there's a long history to the character. There's a long history going into making this film, and I think that that's cool, and it shows that you can, given enough time, you can come up with something that is nicely polished, really nicely polished. The music, well, there's nothing more to add there. I already said what I wanted to say about that. As for the kind of special effects, same thing really, except I will kind of add to it a little bit here. I thought the special effects generally were well done. Generally. But you could look at Goose, who by the way is like my favorite character in the whole movie, and I was like, what, he's a flurkin? What? But when that whole tentacle thing comes out of his face, okay, I get why he's dangerous now. I get why he's more dangerous than a human. I understand now. But you could tell that was CG. It wasn't seamless. It looked a step above video game level, as did Captain Marvel herself when she is engulfed in her power. She has her mask down. She is full on Captain Marvel and going up to space and smashing into spaceships and stuff, and Ronan is just watching her tear everything to shreds, and she's beating a whole space fleet. All right, I thought that maybe that was a little overdone. I know her powers are amazing, but just saying, that seemed a little excessive. But I felt like in that the ships looked better than the character did for her. I felt like you could look at the character of her and it always looked like it was lifted from a video game. It was good, it was well done, but it lacked a certain realism. At least it did to me. Maybe it's just me being nitpicky. Don't get me wrong. It was an exciting climax and an exciting action sequence, which, again, we'll kind of get to more details of that shortly. But I thought that the CG for a few things could have been done just a little bit better, in my estimation anyway. Speaking of the casting, I loved the casting, not only of Brie Larson as Carol Danvers, but like, I love what they did with the young Nick Fury. I always liked Samuel L. Jackson anyway. I've always been a fan of his. But like, you know, he had his hair, and you know, he was like a lot younger, and it was well done. I loved seeing Phil Coulson again. That was great. It was fantastic. Of course, they had the scene with Stan Lee, and I even loved at the beginning of it where when they do the whole Marvel logo thing, it was all images of Stan, and a thank you, Stan Lee. Starscream girlfriend, she's really soft-hearted, and she was like all done. She was all in when they showed that stuff. You know, it's fantastic, and it's nice to see you know, a nod to one of the architects for a lot of what we know and love today within Marvel. This movie was no exception. It was a great representation of a character that's probably been on the B list for longer than she deserved to be on the B list. And with the excess of power that she has, I think it's really nice to kind of see how she will fit in going forward with the MCU now in Endgame. Because, you know, at the end of Infinity War, when the pager thing was done, and I knew then, being a fan of Marvel as long as I have, I knew then, like, okay, well, this is Captain Marvel. Why hasn't she been here all along? Like, what? With her power, like, maybe she could have stopped Thanos from doing what he did. Maybe. Where has she been the whole time? And this movie really does answer that. Though it takes place, of course, in 1995, we all know that just the little mid-roll scene at the end is enough to tie it to the modern era, and we get the explanation in the film as to why it took her so long to kind of get back here. I think that was great. You know, I'll save it for the story. I'll kind of save a commentary for that for the story. But yeah, I mean, the casting, really well done. The CG was all right. The music's fantastic. And now what about the plot? What about the story? I said we had a long development of this. Well, the story was great. It started out, of course, with the Kree-Skrull war going on. And, of course, the Kree looked like the good guys, and the Skrulls looked like the bad guys. And the Skrulls, they, of course, you know, take Carol aboard their ship, and they end up crashing. And we get these weird... I guess this is when we start to get weird nuggets of information, like, who is that woman that Vers sees when she is interacting with the Supreme Intelligence, who, by the way, does not look like the weird head thing that the Supreme Intelligence that I know from the comics looks like, but that's neither here nor there. It's the Supreme Intelligence, whatever. And it looks like this woman, and like, why? What? That scene at the very beginning made no sense at this point. We start to see that, like, she has certain memories, but like everything seems disjointed, and it looks like all the parts of this movie are not going to come together. You're kind of very quickly given a lot more questions than you're given answers. And I'm not going to lie, I was pretty skeptical early on of, are they really going to be able to bring all of this together in some form that actually makes sense to the viewer, especially to the average viewer that may not necessarily kind of know a lot of the lore from the comics. Of course, aboard the ship, it ends up crashing in, and like I figured maybe they went back in time, but no, they crashed in 1995. I think it was Los Angeles. Was it LA? I think it was LA. I'm not sure. And that's when we get introduced to Nick Fury, because everybody calls him Fury, and Phil Coulson. And okay, that makes sense that they would be there. You know, that makes perfect sense that they would be there investigating this, because it's a weird phenomenon thing. Nick doesn't believe that, aliens aren't real. This is just a crazy lady. Until, kind of learns, like, yeah, this is weird stuff I'm seeing. Maybe aliens are real. And then, of course, the Skrull that is disguised as Phil Coulson presents himself as a Skrull in the vehicle, and he can't deny what he's seeing anymore. You know, I mean, it is what it is. We have that big action scene, and, you know, then we have Vers and Fury, and it becomes a buddy movie with the two of them. And who doesn't like a good buddy movie? Especially when they're looking into a secret government project, being, of course, Project Pegasus, which was that whole, like, what was it, engine core, power core thing. And we find out that the woman that Vers is seeing, of course, as we well know now, is, you know, this professor who's actually like a rogue Kree who's helping the Skrull, because the Skrull are actually like refugees on the run, and we learn the Kree are the bad guys and the Skrulls are the ones on the run. What? Mind blown! Not only is our mind blown that way, but we learn that, in fact, Vers is Carol Danvers, a human that ended up kind of becoming Kree, sorta, kinda. And, you know, she had absorbed the power of this core into her body before it got into the hands of the bad guys. And this is why she has all of these memories of a life lived on Earth, because she was there. But then the question was, wait. If she lived on Earth, then how did she end up with the Kree? Why is she crashing back here now? What happened? Well, we learned that after the crash, where she first got her powers, we learned that Marvel ended up being taken out at the time. She was no more. She was done, and an unconscious Carol Danvers, or Vers, as the remainder of her name tag would give her moniker, was taken by the Kree. And with her amnesiac state, you know, she was indoctrinated into being a Kree and thought that's what she was. So it was a lot of weird parts with, she was a person that was on this planet, who left the planet, who now comes back to the planet in the 90s, and it's finding out what's going on with this energy core, which is somewhere still on Earth, because it was supposedly destroyed but not destroyed. It's like, it's really weird. And of course by the end of the movie she's going to leave again. Like, it's a lot of like coming and going to Earth as if you were like coming and going to your local grocery store. As if we didn't have enough things that had blown our mind, finding out, of course, that, you know, the bad guys are the good guys and the good guys are the bad guys. Finding out that, you know, Vers isn't a Kree, she's actually a human that was kind of kidnapped by the Kree. We get another one when we find out that this power core is actually the Tesseract. And we all know the Tesseract by now, and we know the power that it has and where it fits into the lore of the whole thing. We even had other characters come back, like Ronan. We find out why you know, Fury doesn't have, you know, vision in both eyes. Goose was the oddest character, and was like, why is this cat following everyone around? Why are the Skrull afraid of it? Why are they calling it a flurkin? It's Pussycat. It's a pussycat. Except it wasn't. It was actually a flurkin with the pocket dimension, and it swallows the Tesseract. And then you have the question of, how are we going to get the Tesseract? Because we know S.H.I.E.L.D. has it. Ronan was a surprise to me. What was he? Guardians of the Galaxy, was it? Was it? Is that where we saw Ronan? But we know, like, Ronan's a bad dude, man. And I thought it was great to see him. I liked that character. But like, it seemed like a surprising choice to put in there to me. And I liked that we had surprises like that throughout the entire film. Of course, by the end, we have Captain Marvel, you know, like, smashing and bashing all of these ships. I don't even know if she's called Captain Marvel at any point, to be honest with you. I think she's just called Carol. Of course, after she, you know, smashes all of those space vessels, she has that, you know, she squares off there with Jan Rong, was that his name? I can't even remember his name. The Kree guy. And he's like, you don't use your powers and you combat me. And like, she throws him against a rock or something, and like, that's the end of that. She puts him in his spaceship and like, toddle on home now. You tell Supreme Intelligence that this ain't over. Like, it was humorous, but like, it was fitting, and I liked that it was done that way. Of course, we learn at this point that she is going to, you know, leave here, go across the universe, because she has to help the Skrull find a new home. And like Talos and his family, I think they're living on Marvel space station. By the way, I mentioned two things that kind of bothered me. One is the CG seemingly lifted from a video game. I didn't really like that. The other thing was when they go to Marvel's cloaked space station and like it uncloaks. Why? How did Carol know how to uncloak it? Did she uncloak? Like, I'm not sure why they were able to find the space station, know exactly where it was with this modified airplane, which okay, fine, the Skrull guy modified the airplane, fine, no problem, but like, how did you know exactly where this was, and how did you uncloak it? I'm assuming I missed something because everything else in the film is so polished that I don't see leaving out such a minor detail. Yet it's also a major detail. I'm sure I just missed it, but if I did, it went by very quickly in that they just know where the space is. I don't know. I wish that there was a little more story to how they figured out the location of the space station and how they got the necessary code or whatever to like disengage the cloaking device for it. Nevertheless, it's really just the CG thing I talked about, and that one scene that's the only thing I have a gripe with in this film. The directing was great, the characterization was great, and of course now we get to the end of the film and we find out why she's leaving the planet again, because she's going, like I said, to help the Skrull find their homeworld and blah blah blah. And this is when Fury says, we need more like her because there are dangers out in the universe. Plus we have to protect the Tesseract that's inside the cat. And he comes up with, what was it, the Protector Initiative or something? It was like, what a corny name. And he sees the photo with Avenger, I think, on the plane or whatever, and he starts to call it the Avenger Initiative. And of course we get the hint of the Avengers theme, and that always gives me chills, man. It's fantastic, fantastic. And a lot of what needed to be tied up in this film got tied up really nice. Like, you know, we found out how Nick lost his eye, and we know how much Phil is loyal to Fury, and we know now how S.H.I.E.L.D. got the Tesseract in their possession. And, you know, we know why, I guess, how Marvel, or Captain Marvel, how Carol had a life here, and then she was taken with the Kree, and then she came back, and then she leaves again. It's kind of like that scene from the TV show Friends, the whole, they don't know that we know that they know that we know, or whatever. I can't remember how it goes. You know the scene I'm talking about. You know the scene I'm talking about, man. And if you don't, I guess you've never watched Friends. I don't know. But it felt very much akin to that, where like the logic is there, but you got to take a couple of minutes to follow it through in terms of Carol's comings and goings from the planet Earth. The only thing that was left was, how do they get the Tesseract out from the Flurkin cat? And of course we find out in the very last scene how that happens, with the cat doing what a cat does and spinning it up. Ew. Overall, it was a fantastic film. Couple of very minor weaknesses. There was a lot to like, not much to dislike at all. I look forward to see how the character is going to kind of fit into Endgame. If you have seen it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you haven't, go see it, man. It's a 9. Even with the spoilers here, I don't think anything is ruined for you because it is just a fun, good film. It's a good time at the movies. You will, I believe, enjoy yourself if you are a Marvel fan. Anyway, that's it for me this time. I appreciate you dropping by, give me some of your valuable time, and I very much look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit right here inside the videos.